with Jimmy Fallon. Tonight's guests are Robert De Niro, Justin Timberlake, musical guest Van Morrison, and featuring the legendary
Reed Whitrow. So Reed, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, the pleasure is mine, Jimmy. So for those of you who don't know Reed, he is a pre-service teacher at the U of R. He currently just took an ECS 210 class, and he has some things he'd like to share with us. So we'll now give him the floor. At the beginning of the semester, I did a blog post on the Tyler rationale, and thought, yeah, that sounds a lot like my experience throughout school. Given a topic, studied it, and then tested on it. The first thing I thought of was, my entire math experience was just like this. I made a connection later in the semester when Gail Russell did her lecture on numeracy in relation to curriculum and how the Inuit people viewed mathematics. Far too often, people get left behind in mathematics because they don't understand why something is being done. But with our old math, that's how it was set up. There was no explanation. Yeah, write this down, Jimmy. This is good stuff. I found it so cool how the Inuit people developed their mathematics. They counted on a base 20 because they were warm in their igloos and would have their feet and hands exposed, and we used both to count. They also weren't specific with numbers. How many fish did you catch? Enough, not enough, for example. It makes sense. It's not a formula or rule, it's just common sense. When I look at the curriculum for Physical Education 2030, which is my major, I see that it is the oldest curriculum of the subject areas. When I did my curriculum critique, I realized where the trend is going in regards to creating curriculum. We are focusing more on treaty education and implementing objectives and indicators that make it easier for teachers to implement. I look forward to seeing what the new Phys Ed 2030 curriculum looks like. Who knows? Maybe I'll even get a chance to help create it. Now, Jimmy. I think I'm more than capable. On the topic of treaty education, it is something that at one point made me very uncomfortable. I'm a middle-class European settler. I grew up with my culture respected and little to no racial discrimination. Who am I to teach treaty education? Well, I am responsible to teach it, as far too many teachers have not. I am much more comfortable after learning about Mike's experiences of how we can make a difference and what we need to do and what we can do. After doing the cross-curricular mini-unit, I realized how many great resources have come available over the last few years. I also had never done a lesson to do with treaty ed, so I was unsure on how to do it and how to go about doing so. Now I feel comfortable in doing so in the future.
I love it.
I love it too, Jamie. Growth in my teaching will only make me a better teacher in the future. But I got more to my story.
There's more to the story?
Oh yes, there's more. I can't wait to start teaching. My role as a teacher is to provide my students with a safe environment that fosters to their learning best. I like to use a variety of teaching models and strategies to make sure all learners have an opportunity to grow. I have studied a lot of it on experiential learning. One of my role models inspired me by saying, "Give students something to do, not something to learn, and the doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking. Learning naturally exists." Like I said, I have studied experiential learning and have spent a lot of time in the subject area of outdoor education. I find this to be a very positive way of learning. So many people have a place where they feel safe. For many, it is outdoors. Why can't we let students learn in their place? We keep students trapped in desks all day. Why don't we change?
Here's a classroom of today, and here's a class we used 150 years ago. Now ain't that a shame? In literally more than a century, nothing has changed.
We can change. My philosophy of physical education goes against the traditional. Fitness testing, standardized fitness scores. What does that tell students? What they already know. I care more about how far they have come from yesterday and where they will be tomorrow. My philosophy transfers into other subject areas. We must provide students with an environment where they can succeed.
Albert Einstein once said, "Everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Glad you could come. Not only does he make fish climb trees, but also makes them climb down and do a 10-mile run. Tell me, school, are you proud of the things you've done? Turning millions of people into robots, do you find that fun? Do you realize how many kids relate to that fish swimming upstream in class, never finding their gifts, thinking they are stupid, believing they are useless?
I now understand why teaching treaty education is so important. We all need to understand the history of our First Nation people in order to build a relationship between the First Nation people and the European people. We as teachers are responsible to educate the youth, and treaty education is an essential aspect to that.
Students may be 20% of our population, they are 100% of our future.
Thank you, Jimmy, for having me, and thank you to all of you who listened.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and please, would you ever like to come back?
Of course, Jimmy, I'm just a call away.